Bishop Emeritus Carmel Zammit returns to Malta after a relationship with the rock of over 50 years. In this farewell interview, we'll learn more about him, the bishop, the priest, and the man. Father Carmel Zammit, born in Gudja, Malta in 1949. What was your childhood like? Let's start from the beginning.
I think it was a very normal childhood for those years. We are speaking of 60, 70 years ago. And in my childhood, I remember very well all the children in the village, because we went to the same school, a small school of the village. And we used to play together, fight together also, and compete together and running and that sort of thing. Very, very normal childhood, I think. Something that I can honestly say I enjoyed. I enjoyed because it was restricted to our village. We were about 1,500 people there. And I always also, since I was 6, 7, I think, I used to go to church every day. And there was a priest who was a bit nervous. He would not let anybody serve him but me. I had to get up early and go to church to serve his Mass at 6. That was my childhood. And so after Mass, I go home, I get breakfast. I used also to go to help my grandma, who was blind. I had to go there, and so it was my custom. Go there, she gives me some money, I go to shop for her, I take her the things she wanted, and then from there go to school. That was every morning, sort of. You know?
And at the age of 14, you went to the Vatican as an altar boy.
Yeah, at the age of 14, we were the first group to go to serve in the Vatican for over a month, I think. And that came by itself. I always was very active in the church, you know, in the sense of altar boy, helping the priest, etc. You may ask me what gave you the vocation to become a priest. I don't know.
Yes,
you know.
When did you decide that you wanted to be a priest?
I was always very much close to the church. In the sense, I can't say today I had the inspiration of becoming a priest. I was always very close to the church.
Interesting that you say close to the church and not close to God.
Close to the church, serving in church, serving the priest, being with the priest, and that sort of thing. That's the way I will put it, you know. And at that age, you don't give much importance to what prayer means and that sort of thing. You know, prayers. My mother would say prayers with me when I was a very, very young child. She would come to bed with me and say the prayers. And I repeat those prayers even today. They stuck, you know. And I had a very, very good relationship with the priests. And in spite of their ups and downs and the sort of thing, because priests are human, they gave me a lot of attention. In what sense? The one I used to serve at 6 o'clock in the morning, he used to teach. He was ahead in the school. And he said, look, come to my house and I'll give you lessons in English and mathematics. Like that, you can be strong in them. And that helped a lot. And another priest told me, come once a week and I'll teach you Latin. This was at the time I was approaching to go to what today is the comprehensive school. In those days, it was the Lyceum. And those helps from priests, which show that they gave me attention, they wanted to help. I think those things help a lot. And when I went to the Lyceum, then these things helped me a lot also to keep very well grounded in these subjects. That's what it is.
So basically, in a way, you've always wanted to be a priest. But how difficult is it to keep up the faith? Have you ever had a crisis of faith?
No, I don't think I can say I ever had a crisis. By nature, I'm very placid. I don't go to extremes, you know. And, you know, when it comes to knowing what the church teaches, what the scripture says, what we are to believe, I always, in a way, accepted that. I don't question much. Now, you can question a bit, but then what's the point, really? You know, I always felt that my faith is my faith. You cannot argue with faith. There are no reasons or for or against.
Normally, people who question tend to be very clever, and you are very clever. You're extremely well qualified, speak
Yeah.
5 languages: Maltese, Italian, English, Spanish, and Latin. No? My notes are correct. You have a university degree in philosophy, Italian and economics, licensed in theology and canon law.
Now, I tell you why I have those qualifications. First of all, when you go to the seminary, if you go through the A levels, let's put it that way, then even in the seminary, you go to university, all right? And you get your qualifications. Why did I choose economics? Not because I was keen on economics. It's not to do Latin, because I didn't like the professor of Latin. So when I came to choose subjects, I chose economics as a getting out of being with that professor who taught Latin, because I saw him as very demanding. And my fellows who did take Latin for their BA, they all were sorry for it.
Let's move from Malta, Gibraltar. 1975, you first visited the Rock and
That's right.
accepted Bishop Rapallo's invitation
That's right.
to
Bishop
serve here.
Rapallo went to Malta that year, and he was looking for priests. I was in Rome studying, and somebody told him that I was in Rome, and he wanted a canon lawyer. I was studying canon law, and he wrote to me about the possibility of accepting to go and work in Gibraltar because they needed a canon lawyer. And I came here to just have a look. I said, okay, I'll come. And when I came in 75, the border was still closed. And I couldn't believe what I saw with my own eyes at the border. I said, what's this? It's worse than the Iron Curtain. That's what I thought in my mind. No? And anyway, I had a month here, and then I carried on studying in Rome. And at the end of the course, I came here. And what did he want it? What did he want me for, really, Bishop Rapallo? Bishop Rapallo wanted me to do canon law, but that was a minor thing, and to teach in the schools. He wanted a chaplain in the schools. And so it was agreed that I work in the schools, boys and girls, comprehensive at the time, boys and girls. I used to teach religion and take care of chaplaincy also. That's how what Bishop Rapallo really wanted from me as a priest.
You remember the prison board as well, weren't you?
Yeah,
At
but
the time.
those are subsidiaries, let's put it that way. I used to visit the prison when I was especially in Sacred Heart as a priest. And that's where I was chosen to be on the prison board, because I got to know the prisoners quite well, I never minded going to visit the prison, never. I always looked at prisoners as human beings like me. So I never, in a way, was afraid of going there or anything like that.
You mentioned coming and seeing the closed border,
Yeah.
But the whole culture, was it a bit of a culture shock coming to Gibraltar?
No, because I come from Malta, although it's a very small village and we deal together as neighbors, in Malta, in my childhood and even in my youth. We knew each other very well and we got on well together. Gibraltar was the same, really. It's a small place, people know each other, you get to know people and you get on with them, I can honestly say that I never had issues with the people of Gibraltar as a population. Maybe I had an issue with somebody or whatever it is, but not as a people. I always admire them, and I always say, and I say this publicly, that the people in Gibraltar are very understanding, they are very good, they are very generous, and they tend to, in a way, not look at the worst of somebody, but at the best of somebody.
They can be quite cliquey as well. Did you ever feel not welcome because you were from Malta?
I never felt that. Whether it was in the Jewish religion or in the Protestant, we always click together. I never made distinctions really in my mind, because this one is so and that one is so. For me, everybody is the same.
I remember you from Sacred Heart. I hadn't remembered that you were parish priest at St. Teresa's.
I was, because I lived with Father Devlin for 9 years. And I remember when he was nominated bishop, I was the first one to know because I was with him all the time. And he came to me. He said, "Look, the nuncio phoned me and he told me that the Pope wanted me to be a bishop." And I couldn't say no, but it's a terrible thing, he said, to feel that you have to be a bishop. And anyway, and after that, I went with him to Rome, if you remember. I don't know the incident. This was in 85. Many people went to Rome because he was consecrated bishop by the Pope. And it snowed on that day. It was terrible. I never saw snow in Rome, and I lived in Rome, but on that day it snowed. And people were slipping, anyway. And because he became a bishop, and eventually he had to come here, he came here against his will to the house. He wanted to stay in St. Teresa.
His beloved St. Teresa.
Yeah. But anyway, he came here, and he asked me to take care of the parish. That's how I became a parish priest of St. Teresa. And then I went away home for a while. And when I came back, I carried on in St. Teresa. And then
Is that as Chancellor of the Archdiocese, you went back to Malta?
When I went back to Malta, I didn't do much. I did work in the tribunal and that sort of thing. It was afterwards that then I became a chancellor and a judicial vicar. That's when I left in 97, after my stay for 9 years in Sacred Heart. And that going to Sacred Heart, I remember the day he called me. He was worried about Sacred Heart. And he said, "Look, I want you to go to Sacred Heart to fix a few things that are going on there." I said, "Well, I'll do my best, no?" And I went to Sacred Heart and I took over. And in a way, I endowed some issues that were there. That's all.
When you say they needed a canon lawyer, well, what did they need it for?
First of all, for marriage cases. Annulments or dispensations. I went into that immediately. I used to do it after school. I go the whole day to school, and then if I have to see people, I'll see them after school and interview them, etc. And I did a few cases like that. I remember the first case was about getting a dispensation, not a nullity, from Rome. Now, there's no point in explaining the difference, no? The important thing is that I helped somebody very quickly to get a dispensation from the marriage, and they could marry again.
So your return was as bishop after Bishop Hesketh in 2016.
That's right.
How do you feel you were received? Because there must have been priests here vying for that position, for that promotion.
Well, I don't think that priests, if they are in the right state of mind, will vie for the position of a bishop. That's madness.
Poison chalice.
That's madness, because being a bishop is a great responsibility. And especially in my case, when I have not been here for 18 years. So there was a break of 18 years between leaving Gibraltar and coming back again. The priests were more or less the same priests. And I know that basically the priests here wanted a local priest. Because when Bishop Hesketh left and they had like a party for him before he leaves in the community center, somebody made it very clear that Gibraltar wanted or needed a local priest. And so when I became a bishop or was nominated bishop, I knew that some would see that as not the right thing to do, let's put it that way. But I didn't expect opposition, because the priest, no, the bishop is there for them, no? And I talked to them, etc. Having a local priest at that time didn't seem to be attractive to Rome. That's why they chose me. I would have preferred to stay at home than to come here as a bishop, because I was doing good work there, let's put it that way. I was the judicial vicar and I had a lot of work. Well, I would say that the priests accepted me because I have been here for so long. So they know I knew the place. I knew the people and I knew the priests. I had to take a few decisions at the beginning which were not palatable. Let's put it that way. And that made me a bit, not worried, but upset, and even it affected my sleep. You know, sometimes you can't sleep because you have worries. But eventually, let's put it this way, after about a year or at the most 2 years, you know, I overcame that state of mind that I am just facing problems. And I could go to bed and sleep well and put the problems aside, because in life you have to accept that there are problems you can resolve and there are others you cannot. And the problems you cannot resolve, you have to face them, and that's it.
I was going to ask, how lonely is the position of bishop?
I never felt lonely here because people are very good and the priests are not going to make life impossible, no? So I used to go to the cathedral every day. By 11, I would be there. I would do prayers. I would meet people. I would celebrate Mass, and I would eat with the priests. So half my day was on the cathedral. The other half, I would come here and do what needed to be done, because the bishop, I didn't have a secretary. I didn't want a secretary. I did all the work by myself, answering letters, answering invitations, whatever it is, no? And when Rome wanted something, you have to answer back. But I did that by myself. I avoided having anybody here to do work, sort of, you know. Hesketh had somebody. And I think that Bishop Caruana also had somebody. But I said to myself, let's put it this way, I can do this work. I don't need a secretary in a small place like this.
One of the things that you took to heart as bishop was, of course, the Catholic Church having been plagued by accusations of clerical abuse, and this is something that you wanted. You wanted Gibraltar to be a safe place.
Yeah, we did have meetings about that, and the priests are very much aware that if they don't do pastoral work, which is what they are leaned for, if they are silly, they'll have to face the music themselves and not the diocese. I will not defend anybody who, as a priest, who did not do his job as a pastor, all right? But luckily, we didn't have cases. When I was in Malta, I had some cases to deal with. So I had some experience, which is not pleasant at all, you know. Actually, when I went to Malta some time ago, before my resignation was accepted, the bishop there gave me a case to do. And I said, why me? He said, because you're independent. You don't know the people here now, and so you are independent. And he gave me an abuse case to deal with, and I did. And at the end, you have to give your decision, and it goes to Rome, etc. It's very unpleasant, very unpleasant. But you have to do it. Somebody has to do it.
Well, it needs to be done.
Usually it's a priest who has to do it. That's the rule in the Vatican. And so when I did this case and I sent my recommendations to Rome, because they have to go to Rome when it is underage, the person involved, no? They accepted my recommendations. They might have been very hard, and the bishop told me, you are very hard here. Huh? I said, well, that's what I feel. But they accepted my recommendation, and this priest who was involved, nobody would know what this is. I recommended 10 years suspension. That's a lot. 10 years not being able to act as a normal priest.
You said that they thought that you were very hard. When you came to Gibraltar, some would have said that you were very conservative, and I'm using the word conservative because I'm being diplomatic. Do you feel you've mellowed? I think you've mellowed.
No, well, when I was a chancellor, some thought the same way, that I was very hard. Because as a chancellor, you have to deal with a lot of problems, and then you have to take a line and whatever it is, no? And especially people who were organizing feasts, etc., which was a big thing in Malta. And I decide that they are going to stop celebrating a feast because of the conditions in which they were. They thought that I don't like feasts and I am very hard. It's not that I don't like feasts. It's not that I'm not, I'm very hard. You see what's best and you do what's best. I never think in terms of conservative or progressive. You do what is just, and that's it.
I'm actually going to talk to you about conservative or progressive, but there's a debate on whether the church, now more than ever, needs to stick to its fundamental principles versus whether it needs to move on with the times to remain relevant. So, what side would you say you're on?
I follow what the popes preach, and they are very good usually. Francis, sometimes.
We've had very progressive popes.
Yeah. Francis sometimes he didn't go far out, but
he went quite
at the
far
end,
out. He went quite far out.
He followed what we would call the medium course, the middle course. Although sometimes he said things he had to say sorry for, no? Okay. This Pope is different. This Pope, luckily I met this Pope for a whole hour discussing Gibraltar with him before he became a Pope. He was in his office for bishops. And he was so gentle, so kind, very good at listening. He will never interrupt what you're saying, you know? And when I heard that he became Pope, I said, look at this, you know? But the impression I had of this Pope before he became Pope is the impression people got of him afterwards, that he is kind, he thinks a lot, but he tries to stay out of problems, out of trouble, you know, not to say things that may cause problems. There are issues in the church, and he will be forced sometimes to try to take a decision, no? But I think he is very wise and he bides his time.
Your intention has always been to build bridges, and you always felt very strongly that no one should be excluded from the church.
Of course. Well, Pope Francis used to say that the church is open for everybody, and he repeats that 3 times, for everybody, for everybody, for everybody. And I know what he was referring to, for those who feel that they are a bit excluded from the church, not because of their situation in life. And the Pope was telling us, the church is open for everybody. Whether they are sinners or not, they are there, okay?
A group of people who have felt excluded from the church has always been the LGBTQ plus community. This was one of the challenges that you had to deal with, same-sex marriage. So when we talk about no one should be excluded from the church, but yet, so where would you say the church?
It's a question of doctrine and not a question of behavior. I know some people who are gay here, and I got on well with them, and I think they have no issues with me. You know, I met them in the governor's party. They were a group there, and we talked together and that sort of thing. So I know who they are. And I look upon them as I look upon everybody else. They are created to the image of God. That is the Bible. Everybody is created to the image of God, whatever you are. And so they deserve the respect that everybody else has. No? Now, the fact that they can or cannot do certain things, that's a question of doctrine. But they have to follow their conscience also, because these are people. They have a body, they have a soul, they have a conscience, etc. And they have to be honest with themselves. And when they approach the church, to be honest with themselves and whether they are going to accept the doctrine of the church about these things or not. But I would not interfere. The Pope once said, who am I to judge? And I'll repeat that. I will not judge anybody. And if he sees somebody going up to communion, and I may know that he is not in the right disposition for communion, I wouldn't say a thing. I'll give it to him. And once I told the people in a sermon, in a homily, I said, stop judging people. Don't judge. That's only God who judges. If you see somebody, don't think, why is he going to communion? Why is she going to communion? She is in this position, etc. That's not your job to judge.
Was that one of your big challenges, the same-sex marriage?
No, in a way, I knew the world is moving in that direction. Before it happened in Gibraltar, it happened in Malta. So I had experience of that, And what I did in that situation, it was very early in my being a bishop here. I wrote a small letter, which others signed, and I published it in the papers, and that was my contribution to it. I said, this is not necessary, sort of, but it went through. There was the divorce, the abortion
debate.
The
abortion
abortion
that got
debate.
quite ugly.
Yeah, unfortunately, because the same thing, abortion is much more of an issue than same-sex marriage. You can't compare one with the other. You can say this has these issues, this has these pros and cons, but abortion is abortion. And the church always, and the Pope repeats it, that abortion is wrong. It is like killing somebody. You find it easy to do it because you don't see it. That's all it is. But it is killing somebody. And I will not judge people who do an abortion, though, because I'm not in their shoes. Only people who are in the situation may be able to feel that in their case an abortion is justified. I will not judge anybody who does an abortion. I always teach that it's wrong to have an abortion. But if you do it, then what? All right?
Another challenge for you, I mean, not at that level of the referendum, was COVID. When you were forced to close down the churches, it was tough.
But did we close the churches? I left them open. And I, every day, from here, went to the cathedral before 11 o'clock. I was disobeying a bit, Before 11 o'clock.
We can say that now.
No, I think everybody knows it. And I used to tell people there, because many people used to go to pray in the cathedral around that time, no? And I said to them, anybody who wants to receive communion may come up and I'll give them communion. And I did that. For a long period of time, I gave communion in the church. And I don't remember whether for some days we closed the church. But if it was for some days, that's it. Most of the time, it was open.
What would you say has been your darkest time in Gibraltar, your greatest challenge?
The greatest challenge that you feel most was more or less at the beginning of my being here as a bishop, when some priests decided to leave the priesthood. That's the worst that I feel. And it's not because they blame me or I'm to be blamed for them leaving the priesthood, because this is something that comes from the past. But when a priest decides to leave, for me, it's very hard to swallow. They have a right to do it, and we send it to Rome, and Rome gives them permission, etc. We do all the work to make it legal, no? This, but still, you feel it.
You've had some financial challenges recently, the roof and the cathedral, Sacred Heart, but you've always been very positive,
No,
very the Lord will provide.
Well, I'll tell you, when I went to Sacred Heart, that was in 1997, the first thing I saw I had to do was to change the roof of Sacred Heart. And I told the people, the first sermon I had, or the first talk I had with the people in Mass, I said, we need money to change the roof, we need so much money, no? I said, I'm appealing to you to be generous, but this is the first and last time you'll hear me say anything about money. And I never repeated the appeal again. And we got all the money and we changed the roof, and that was it. In the case of the cathedral, it was much more expensive because in those days, the changing of the roof of Sacred Heart, if I remember well, was about £40,000. In those days, it was quite a sum to get from Sacred Heart, no? But anyway, in this case, in the case of the cathedral, it was £500,000. How are we going to get this money? And I always say, the people who by nature are generous, they will help out. And in a question of a few years, let's put it that way, we didn't get all the money at once, no? But there is a process where we continue to get people donating money, and we are able to pay. But money never in my mind was an issue.
Your motto as bishop was, Lord, have mercy on
That's
us.
from the Te Deum. In the Te Deum, it's a hymn that we say on Sunday, there is this aspiration, have mercy on us, Lord, have mercy. And it always attracted me.
In this age of increasing secularism, is it perhaps more relevant than ever?
No, I always felt that God is the God of love and God of mercy. No, we repeat this every day. And to know that God is the God of mercy is so uplifting. Because we are all sinners. We all do something wrong from time to time. There's no hiding that. And then you turn to God and say, Lord, have mercy, have mercy. And that's it. And He will have mercy. That is the biblical concept of God. God is a forgiving God. That's all.
The world seems to be going completely mad. So what would you say of the direction the world is heading in? And does it make you sad?
No, because the world is the world and it moves on. You cannot stop, even in the church. The church is always moving on. Ecclesia, they say it in Latin, Ecclesia semper reformandi. That means the church has to be always changing, reforming itself. And it happens with the world. And I have no worries, in a sense, that the world is going in the wrong direction. There are some things that are going wrong, but not everything is going wrong, Nowadays, this interview is in the middle of a war. 2 wars now. And obviously that's very wrong. But the world carries on. Do you imagine the world is going to end because of all the things that go around us? No. And people are going to change because of the things that go around us. People are people. And sometimes they are influenced to what is wrong, that's all right. But people remain people. And I believe that the world will adjust to what goes on.
How do you see the future of the Catholic Church here in Gibraltar? Because, of course, Bishop Charlie Sapari has great links with the youth and that.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. What I can say in 9 years that I've been here, I cannot say that we're lost in the church. The church continued to have people coming to Mass, etc. No, I used to say regularly the 12:30 Mass in the cathedral, and I was always very glad to see the number of people that come to that Mass. I know they are oldish, they are retired, whatever it is, but they are people who are keeping the church going, no? And as the young grow up, they too, there'll be a proportion who will come to the church and carry on with the church. Who is a member of the church? Because this is the question. We say baptism makes you a member of the church. So all Gibraltarians who are baptized are members of the church. Not all of them go according to the rules of the club, no? You can be in a club and be a member and not take part in what the club does, all right. And that happens a lot in the church. But there is always a percentage that keep their connection, let's put it that way, with the church. And that's what makes the church, because the church It's not a question of whether you go to Mass or not. The church is how your relationship with others and with God is. That is the church. If you take religion as a word, religion means to be tied to somebody. So religion has three dimensions: you, God, and others. Your relationship with God, your relationship with others, and the relationship of others with you and with God. That's what religion is about.
Bishop Emeritus Carmel Zammit, what's next for you? You hanging up your robes?
No. As soon as I go back home now, the parish priest already phoned me yesterday to tell me what I'm going to do. I'll be celebrating Mass in my parish, and apart from that, usually you get invitations to go to other parishes to celebrate something special in the parish. I have a few of those already. And apart from that, then I am expecting the Archbishop to tell me to do some confirmations, because there are many confirmations in Malta. So I'll help in that way, unless he decides to give me a case to do again. A case, canonical sense.
And a bit of your gardening, a bit of tinkering in cars, which is what
That
I
I
remember.
don't know now.
What I remember you doing.
No, I do. But now, as much as I do, you can't tinker with cars. They are all electric. And so that's it,
Thank you so much for talking to us. Have a very happy Easter and the best of luck from Gibraltar in your new life in Malta.
What I can say is that Gibraltar is in my heart. No, I lived here for over 30 years now, more than that. And I will not stop visiting. I cannot be coming every month because I have my jobs to do, but I'll keep visiting. The bishop, in his kindness, gave me 2 rooms here where I can stay when I come. So I have a flat here, which I can use, when I come here. Let's see. I'll be coming to Gibraltar this year at least another 2 times, I think, and then we'll see.
Taking over from Carmel Zammit, Father Charlie, as he's best known, was appointed bishop, the third Gibraltarian since Gibraltar became a diocese in 1910. He was ordained bishop in a moving ceremony at Victoria Stadium on the 7th of December after having served as a priest for 33 years. Bishop Asopardi looked back on his relationship with Bishop Emeritus Carmel Zammit. Bishop Charlie Asopardi, thank you for joining me today. What do you remember of serving under Bishop Carmel Zammit?
Well, remember that I've known Father Zammit since 1975, when he first came as a young priest. He was, in those days, we were used to our oldies like Father Pons, Father Caruana. In comparison to him, he was a young man. So he was, I remember going to the beach with him and Father Danny, and it was fresh air that had come in through the door. He came when Father Farrugia came and was working with the youth clubs, Father Grima. All these were very young men. We're talking about they came to Gibraltar when they were 25, and I was a teenager.
What was he like?
The first summer he came, he seemed a very, young person, different to the others. It was interesting that, he's very. Later on, I met him in school as a teacher, but again, that the kind of person that you look up to, no?
You've been a priest under Devlin, Caruana, Hesketh, and Zammit.
That's right.
Different styles of being bishop.
Totally. I mean, but I mean, I could go back to remembering Bishop Healy was a very holy man in the 1970s. You know, I mean, I remember going to Lourdes as an altar boy with Father Paul. One of our big highlights was to meet someone called Archbishop Fulton Sheen, who's now been looked to be made a saint, and a lot of people who follow EWTN sometimes see these interviews of this flamboyant character. And then, yeah, I mean, Bishop Caruana was completely different to Devlin, and Devlin was completely different to Rapallo. But I think that each of them built on each other, and it was different times and different situations. And I think that they were the answer for the time. You know, it's the same as the popes. You know, I mean, um, uh, from St. Paul VI to St. John Paul II, you know, or Pope Benedict or Pope Francis. I mean, they all had a different style, and I think that gives about what is important about the church. You know, that it's a living organism, and that it carries on, it being enriched and being and growing.
I have to make something public that you might not like me making public, but I just found it so funny. So you're talking about being young with Father Paul, and my aunt, who's 100, said, I remember Father Charlie and Father Paul playing to being priests and saying mass in the patio, in la azotea. So
Your auntie is a great friend of my mother, and they would always comment about this. Oh yes, I mean that was very very. I mean not only him, but I mean Nobby Sene, Giovanni, and you know Douglas Bagu. I mean a lot of us. You know there was I mean that was part of our entertainment.
But so have you always wanted to be a priest?
Me, I mean I would say that what that is probably what stopped me for a while wanting to be a priest, because I was always worried that it was me who wanted to be a priest, that rather God wanted me to be a priest. I knew that it just was my own instinct. I could possibly make a mess of it, but if it was his, it was going to be different. And I bargained a lot. I mean, I always think about the prophet Jonah, how he didn't want to go and preach to the Ninevites, and that he was forced to do it. In a certain way, you know, I feel that I have no doubt in my mind that it wasn't Charlie who wanted to be a priest, but that Jesus wanted Charlie to be a priest, you know, and that we both coincided, yes. But I mean, what was very important for me was that it was him calling me.
And what kind of a bishop do you want to be? It's early days.
Listen, that is a very remote. I want to serve, and I will been serving since I became a priest in 1992, and I will continue to serve. That you probably may be able to ask me in 12 years' time, or ask my successors whether I made a mess of it, or was I able to, you know, be influential and make any difference. I will only say that I will do my best. That's the only thing I can say.
You're very much a parish priest. You've been there for your people. We always say about the young, you're very much there for the young. Does being a bishop take away from that? Does it add administrative burdens?
Listen, with all respect to all my predecessors, I always used to say, in Gibraltar, the bishop is a glorified parish priest. Now that I'm the bishop, I'm not going to change the tune. I am a glorified parish priest. And I think that a parish priest is a pastor. That rather than being a pastor only of a small area, I'm of the big area. But again, there are parishes in Rome, where I used to go, that they used to have 4 priests for 100,000 people. I mean, when you look in La Linea, I mean, there's some parishes which are bigger than not necessarily territorially, but certainly dense population. So I mean, it's a question of basically service, you know.
And the soup kitchen, which you've been doing, will you carry on doing that? Do you find that you've got time
Well,
for that?
I carry on doing it for the last, you know, I mean, it was only a few weeks ago that it was 3 months that I was ordained, and basically another 3 months that I was nominated, because more or less, so it's since September, it's 6 months. The soup kitchen doesn't take away from me because I go there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I mean, normally you don't see people before 9 o'clock in the morning. So usually by 9, I'm outside already. So I carry on doing the soup kitchen. I am still living in St. Teresa's. When Bishop Devlin became bishop, I mean, I became very close to him, especially in his later years, you know, we used to talk. He found it very hard to leave St. Teresa's and go to live in Bishop's house.
Will you be moving to Bishop's house?
I made it very clear on the day that I was made bishop. And I did it then because I didn't want people to be speculating what was going to happen. For me, it would have been an easy decision had it been a question of moving into the cathedral, you know. But to move up to Europa and then having to come to the cathedral, the distance between St. Teresa's is the same. I still want to carry on being involved with the soup kitchen. I still want to carry on. I want to be the Bishop of Gibraltar and not of the cathedral. One of the reasons I've appointed a parish priest and not an administrator is basically that I want the cathedral to be a parish. A parish.
I wanted, sorry, to ask you about that you recently appointed your cabinet, so to speak, your council. How important is it to be surrounded by people that you know and trust?
Look, I mean, the reason that some have been chosen, others not, is not that I don't trust them. It's simply that by canon law, I am required to have office bearers. So those office bearers have been chosen among the priests. I trust all the priests implicitly. I am very grateful for the way that they have made me feel so welcome. And we will carry on doing many more things. I mean, there's still more things to be done, and these will come slowly. I mean, I think it's important that we've got 12 years ahead, and that this is about handing the baton in 12 years' time, having been able to put certain things in motion and please God. One of the things which is very important for us is that there'll be a future clergy that, in the same way that when I was studying, there was about 6 or 7 of us, maybe not as many, but certainly that there will be a few Gibraltarians studying to the priesthood. That is very important.
We had Father Stuart Chibolino expressing concern over the lack of priests.
Yeah, I mean, that is, there'll be no, I mean, we would be extremely responsible if we didn't think about a succession plan. I mean, at the moment, we're extremely grateful in the same way that we were to the Maltese, because Father Zammit, when he first came, he came as a priest with many other priests from Malta over the years. And now we are relying, we've had Poland helping us, and now we have the priest from the Philippines.
Bishop Charlie, you have created a space for Bishop Carmel Zammit to come back to Gibraltar whenever he wants to.
I have, and I also have done the same to his predecessor, Bishop Ralph, who last Friday his resignation was accepted by the Holy Father a year before his 75, and I've extended to him my desire that he will come and live in the cathedral in the bishop's apartment, which is there. So both Bishop Emeritus of Gibraltar have a home here, whilst they're not Gibraltarians, but for me it's very important that they know that we care for them and that they are important in our lives.
Just want to wish him very well. We're very grateful for everything he's done for Gibraltar. I remember him when I was in school. He used to teach my A-level class, and thanks to him I passed my A-levels quite well. And we're very grateful for everything he's done. So we just wish him well. And he's always got a home here in Gibraltar whenever he wants to come home.
Carmel Zammit, when he came to Gibraltar originally, He was the chaplain at the grammar school for a while. And I remember him, he was a young guy with a lot of energy and had ideas about him. And I think he was always popular. He was popular then, and he continued to be so. I know for a fact from my own work that he was also hands-on in the prison service as a counselor there. And he's obviously always worked on the power that he derives from our religion. So a man who's done a great deal of good work, sometimes behind the scenes, but the people who know him and who've worked with him appreciate him tremendously.
Oh, I remember him for many years, since I was a little girl. My parents knew him very well, my late parents, and I always remember him going to Sunday Mass with him, and even school events, so because I'm an ex-teacher. So I wish him all the very best, and it would be lovely to thank him for his ministry and for his dedication to Gibraltar, to the priesthood, and as our last bishop, of course.
But he was always very good to me. He was a very good bishop, and I miss him.
He was a very nice, caring person, and he was good for Gibraltar.
I'm glad that I was able to attend your Episcopal ordination in Malta itself, and I know that God will have something else for you, as He still has for me.
I think he was a good bishop. He loved everybody and meet everybody, ignore anybody. He was a father to everybody, and I think it's a pity he left. We are happy with Bishop Charlie, because he's one of us and we love him, but we are sorry that he left, and I think he also, though he wanted to go back home, but he loved Gibraltar, and I think that's the main thing.
Well, I have very good memories. Right now, I don't remember all of them, but he's been a very good bishop as well for us, and I wish him all the best and to enjoy his retirement.
Yes, my best wishes to our departing bishop. I think that he's done a great job, and I wish him a happy retirement.